This is day 355. Suffering has value. I'm traveling today, so sorry for the audio quality. I started a commitment 355 days ago, and so today marks 10 days left. I made a point of not sharing too many details about my personal commitment and the sacrifice that has gone along with it. The essential formula is this: if I do X for 365 days in a row, I will get Y. The funny thing is I achieved Y after about 230 days into my commitment. So I've been continuing my commitment even though the goal was achieved. This last year of implementing this commitment has caused me to go through some suffering. The thing about suffering is that it sucks while you're going through it. The pain, the heartache, the angst, and all the emotions are just temporary. Once the suffering is over, you no longer experience those things. What feels so excruciating, so terrible while you're going through it, ends up being just a quick story you tell. The real interesting part about suffering is what you get to keep when you survive it. This is the value behind suffering. I now tell the story of running my first ultra marathon, a 50-miler, in a few sentences. I say where I did the event and how long it took. I describe the preparation as if it was also simple. The reality is that I had to suffer through compounded challenges, obstacles, and pain. I could not write up or tell people the full narrative. It'd take too long, but suffer I did. Bitter cold, vomiting in a ditch, encounters with wildlife, rain, snow, sleet, winds, and just about every other event you could think of. Rattlesnakes, coyotes, bears, elk, a territorial bull, raccoons, skunks, and even one rabid squirrel all stood in my path on my journey. The running I did in preparation every day, every night, every weekend, every holiday was filled with self-doubt and finding resolve when all the willpower had left. I suffered mightily. I ran thousands of ultras before I heard that actual starting gun. People who do not know the sport would ask how I possibly ran all day long like that. My thought has always been, how could I not? Finishing that race was the reward. For the most part, it felt easy by comparison. However, all that is boiled down to just one sentence. Yeah, I ran a 50-miler once. That's it. All the suffering reduced to just that. So the suffering is now forgotten, and I am left with what I took from the experience. The value I carved out of the experience was absolute realization that the only thing in my way is my own mind. Someone told me that once, but I didn't believe it. Now I know. Once I overcome the objection in my mind, then nothing can stop me from achieving a goal. So this last year, I suffered once again. This is all self-inflicted, by the way. This year, I didn't run a 50-miler, but I did something else, probably something even more difficult. Many people go through suffering that is not of their own choosing. Many others will suffer with things that will never have an end, at least in their lifetime. I am unable to address that level of suffering because I have generally experienced good physical health and opportunity in my life. However, I have spoken with many on this topic, and they describe a process of coming to grips with suffering and gaining a similar type of value. I would never compare my suffering to those because of their circumstances, health, or other reasons face a lifetime of chronic issues. However, I do suffer. This is relative suffering for me, but who can measure suffering except the person who holds the measure? My comfort is knowing that when the suffering is over, I will not remember the pain. I will instead leave the experience with the value of what I gained. As I approach the final 10 days of this current commitment, I find myself reflecting on what lies ahead and what I have yet to take from this experience. The end of a journey is always a peculiar place. You start to see the finish line, but the weight of the road behind you still presses on your shoulders. There's an anticipation for it to be over, but at the same time, a quiet realization that the moment it ends, it will feel like it barely happened at all. What I've come to understand is that the goal, the why I set out to achieve, was never truly the reward. The real value was found in the process, the daily grind, the quiet suffering, and the moments where I had to dig deeper than I thought possible. It's easy to think that once the commitment is over, life will return to normal, but I know better now. I will carry the lessons learned long after the commitment fades into memory. And so as I step into these final days, I'm not rushing towards the finish line. This will be probably the 6th or the 7th major 365 commitment I've been doing since I've started this blog. I'll honor the last of this journey, knowing that the true transformation has already taken place. What I leave behind is simply the struggle, the pain, and the sacrifice. What I take with me is a renewed understanding of who I am and what I'm capable of. The suffering, though hard to endure, has carved out space for something far more lasting: resilience, clarity, and an unshakable belief that the mind, once mastered, can overcome any obstacle. Soon, the story of these 365 days will be another simple tale I will tell in the passing. But what I keep from this year will live on in me, shaping the way I face the next challenge, the next commitment, and the next opportunity to prove to myself that I can endure, adapt, and emerge stronger. And that, in the end, is the value of it all. The real question that I have to tackle now is, what suffering am I going to self-inflict upon myself for the next 365 days?